Welcome to House of Tay Tay. Today we have a special guest, Kevin Frost. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Tay.
It's been a long time.
Too long.
Too long.
Too long.
And introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Sure. I'm Kevin Frost. I'm the Chief Executive Officer, the CEO at amfAR, the Foundation for AIDS Research.
So for Thai people, they are not familiar with amfAR. How would you define amfAR?
amfAR is a global medical research foundation. We're one of the oldest AIDS organizations, AIDS research organizations in the world, actually. We were started in 1983. We were called the AIDS Medical Foundation. And then in 1985, we became amfAR. And we fund research around the world. We have a very big program that's based here in Bangkok. It's called Treat Asia. It is supporting people with HIV/AIDS and doing research with a lot of medical institutions around Asia. So we're in 13, 14 countries here where we do the research. And we collaborate with universities like Chulalongkorn and non-governmental organizations like IHRI. We support community organizations and community work here in the region. We do a lot of advocacy and education, awareness building around HIV issues and things like that.
So you have been how many years at amfAR?
I have been at amfAR almost 32 years.
Wow. During your time for many years, what has been the milestone?
Oh, I think there have been many milestones sort of along the way, right? And you can sort of point to some of those things. Some things that were pivotal, obviously, early on in the epidemic when we, first had to identify this virus. We had to figure out why people were getting sick. And it required a lot of research to understand what was happening and how things were going on. So for a very long time, we were doing what I call sort of discovery research. We were trying to understand and discover what was happening and figure it out. And then we were able to start doing interventional research. And that's where we really sort of began to make progress, right? The first treatment for this disease, AZT, was introduced in 1987. But it really wasn't until about 10 years later in 1997 that we really began to break through in treatment with combination therapies. But some of the milestones along the way, I would say the ability to prevent mother-to-child transmission. And here in Thailand, they've eliminated. So Thailand has done amazing work in that regard. Other steps along the way, which eventually led us to the ability to prevent acquisition of HIV through something called PrEP. I'm sure some people are familiar with PrEP. It's the ability to take one pill once a day and prevent you from acquiring HIV. Big, important breakthrough. For me personally, the big milestone really came in around 2008 when we had the first person who was ever cured of HIV. And he's known as the Berlin patient. He was an American who was living in Berlin, had HIV for a very long time, was diagnosed with cancer, leukemia, and he underwent a bone marrow transplant. And through a very special process that his doctor used, he was cured. His HIV was eliminated. And that was a turning point in the epidemic. It was a turning point in research, I should say, because it was a proof of concept. It proved to everybody that you could cure the disease. It wasn't easy, wasn't straightforward, but it could be done. And up until that point, nobody believed it could be done. Like even doctors and scientists never used the word cure, right? It was considered the four-letter word of AIDS. Nobody talked about it because nobody believed it was possible. And then when the Berlin patient came along, all of a sudden, everything changed because people now understood that it was achievable. This is something that we could do. And now, over the last 10 plus years, 12, 13 years, there are 10 people who have now been cured. And each case is different, slightly different. Each one is complicated. Each one is difficult to do. But as we build research, which is really what research does, right? It builds on all the knowledge that's come before, and hopefully it progresses to new knowledge. More and more people believe that a cure is possible. A cure that we can scale up and deliver to millions of people. There's 40 million people living with HIV. So the only way to end the AIDS epidemic globally is by having a cure and having a vaccine to prevent people from getting it.
So what is the future now?
The future is going to be two things. One, it's preventing acquisition. The ability to access PrEP, the ability to deliver PrEP is definitely the future of the epidemic. Because we now have an injection. There's an injection available, like a single shot.
Injection PrEP.
Injection PrEP, injectable PrEP, is a single shot that you can get twice a year, every 6 months, that can completely prevent you from acquiring HIV. And that's a phenomenal breakthrough. That's an extraordinary breakthrough. And everyone, I think, scientifically is extremely excited about that. The challenge is, how do we deliver it to the people who need it most? And that, I think, is going to be an enormous challenge, because we have to convince governments to invest the resources to acquire injectable PrEP. We have to convince the right population to take injectable PrEP. There's a lot of complicated things that need to be done, but there's no question that if we did it, we could completely radically change the face of this epidemic over a single generation. The other big part of the future is the continuing work around finding a cure, is figuring out something that's scalable and deliverable to millions of people. But you have to remember, it's the deliverable part is a hard part. It's not so simple. People don't realize that. If this bottle of water, this is just clean water, right? This is just plain clean water. If this bottle of water was the cure for AIDS, there's more than 1 billion people on this planet for whom we couldn't give it, because 1 billion people go without clean water every day. So being able to deliver a cure is a big part of the problem. And what we need to do is develop something that's simple, cheap, and deliverable if we're going to cure the 40 million people living with HIV.
So, addiction, drugs are big problems right now in Thailand, especially. As a leader of a health organization, what do you think of it?
I do think the challenges are enormous, right? I do think that the challenges are hard, and I'm certainly not an expert, but I think that we have to understand that these are not just medical issues, right? I do believe that addiction should be recognized as a disease. But like a lot of diseases, including HIV, you can't treat it in isolation. You can't medicalize it to the point where you think you can just give a treatment and be done. It's not like that. It's far more complicated than that. I think we have to deal with a lot of the underlying issues that lead to addiction, right?
The root causes.
The root causes, whether that might be trauma, whether that might be homelessness. It could be, it's a complicated set of variables, and everybody's path is different. And I think we have to figure out how to deal with those underlying causes. How do we get people where they are and help them where they are in the process in order to be successful? And it's harder now. I mean, it's always been hard, but it's even harder now when resources are not as available. Governments don't want to do this work. People are squeamish. They don't want to talk about these kinds of issues. But we need people like you, Tay, who are willing to speak out and be a voice for people on these kinds of issues so that it can bring it to light.
Yeah.
And help us to fund the research.
I would say I started channel without believing in myself that I could do it. And then as it's growing, I have touched so many people and I've reached the hearts of many people who are struggling with the issues.
You must hear from lots of them, don't you?
They DM me, they message me in all the platforms. These people feel so alone and they couldn't speak up for themselves.
But didn't you feel alone?
I felt like that, just like them. Right now, as I have healed myself, I would like to tell everyone that they are not alone. And I would want to be the voice for them to speak the emotions, the feelings they cannot talk about,
Yeah.
And it's taboo in Asian culture, especially in Thailand, to talk about drugs, addiction, chemsex, and we have to break stigma and give people education and understanding on these issues. I wouldn't judge anyone for doing drugs, but if they have problems or they're struggling or it caused them, difficulties.
First of all, breaking the taboo. Right.
Yeah.
We have to break the taboo so people can talk about these issues. And we have to normalize it because there's so much shame. People feel so much shame around these issues, and that breaking the taboo and having people speak out and be a voice helps to diminish that shame. A recognition that you're not alone, that others have been on this same path, and others have emerged from that path successfully.
You don't hear a lot of icons talking about being successful in the recovery. That's why I would like to be that person for the people.
Healing is a journey. It's not a destination, right? Healing is a process that goes on throughout our lives. All of us have issues that we have to deal with, but until we can really get to the underlying understanding of what brought us to a point, we can't really heal ourselves in the way that we want to. And so I think the understanding the healing is really important.
And as you say, the imperfect. My book is called Stardust Memoirs of an Imperfection. Be inspired by Mariah Carey. And she had an album called Memoirs of an Imperfect Angel. But I'm not angel.
No.
I'm a Gaysian.
You're a
So
Gaysian.
I'm an imperfect Gaysian. So
Yeah.
it would describe my life, you know. I'm not perfect, but I'm just a human.
Well, none of us are we? I mean, we're all imperfect, and that's part of the human condition. I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward to it coming out.
It will be everywhere.
I can't
Bestseller, manifest.
Yay, there you go.
How old are you now?
I'm 62.
And you feel alive, most alive today?
In 2010, so that was a little more than 15 years ago, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I underwent chemotherapy treatments. You know, I lost all my hair. I did all of that. And I was in remission for about 3.5 years. And then my cancer came back. And I underwent chemotherapy again. And then I was in remission for about 1.5 years. And then it came back again in 2017. And I was undergoing treatment for about 2 years, but it wasn't going well. In 2019, I had gotten to the point where I kind of had run out of treatment options. So my husband and I were faced with some end-of-life discussions, like what happens at this point. I went to see a transplant specialist at New York Presbyterian Hospital just to talk about what my options were. He said, you know, there's a research study going on at Columbia University that I think might be interesting for you. It's a new kind of treatment. It's called CAR T, where they're going to transplant, they're going to re-engineer your T cells, which is part of the immune system, and then they're going to re-infuse, they're going to transplant that back into your body. I don't know if it'll work, but right now, you know, you don't have a lot of options. So I said, okay, I'll go talk to them. And I spent a day doing all these tests, and they said, yeah, we think that you could qualify for this study, this experimental treatment. So in August of 2019, I underwent this transfer. It's called chimeric antigen receptor T cell treatment. And 30 days after that treatment was done, I was cancer-free. And so when you ask me, do I feel alive? I feel more alive today than I ever have.
Because I can read your energy. You're not that person I met before.
Before, no.
And I'm not that person.
And you're
you
not
met
the same
before.
person either, no.
I'm so glad that we get to reconnect today.
Me too.
And it's been, you know, beautiful for us to been through a lot. And, you know, life is gonna take us to the next level.
Absolutely.
So what would you say to people who think that this is the end of the world for them, you know? They might be struggling with their own trauma, pain, abuse, but they cannot go on anymore.
You know, I had the real privilege of working for a woman named Dr. Matilda Krim, who along with Elizabeth Taylor, was the founder of amfAR. Dr. Krim was an extraordinary woman with extraordinary privilege, right? An extraordinary privilege in life, and she was very well connected. Her husband had served 2 different presidents of the United States. She chose to live her life in a way that was serving other people. She was involved with amfAR because she wanted to help at a time when nobody wanted to help. One of the things that she used to say, and she used to say to me regularly, is that every human life has value, and every human deserves dignity and respect. What I would say to people who feel like it is the end of the world, or that their life may have no meaning and no value, that it's not true. Every life has value. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to be loved. And if you believe that, and if you can find that love in your life, I think you can find your way out. I think you can.
I'm gonna cry. I mean,
Aww.
no one ever told me that I matter. Like, I was all alone. I didn't know what my value was until that day, like a friend who is now my boyfriend told me that I'm not an addict and I do, and he believed that I could be anything I want to be.
Absolutely.
And I mean, today now I live with pride and dignity and respect to myself. I never really respect myself in the way that is normal because I was abused when I was a child and everyone neglected me and degrading way, you know. Today I have respect for myself and I do respect everybody and I don't want to judge anyone for being themselves, you know. Not easy
I
for
know.
me, you know.
Yeah. If you can find it, others can find it too, Tay.
Yeah,
They
you
can.
know, I use my body, I use my soul, I use my heart in the way that it was, you know, full of pain and darkness. But now I know that I have value, and that greatest value is me, myself. And I love you. And you
Oh,
love me.
I love you.
Eye opening for me to see the people on the jobs, you know, and they try to like make this world a different place, you know, and I'm so privileged and I had it been easy, like financially to, you know, be able to do things, you know, but I don't want to take things for granted anymore. I feel like if you have more, you have to give more.
There's a saying that I love very much. Only a life lived for others is the life worthwhile. Is that somewhere along the way, I realized that when I was helping other people through my work, I was also helping myself. And that to me is where the true value in my existence and my life comes from.
For me, I'm doing all this work. My book, I want to break the chains that stop people from being happy. And whatever like struggle you go through, it's not the end of the world. I want to be the voice for people who cannot process their pain. I mean, it's been painful to the point of dying
Yeah.
for me, you know. And I never realized that life can be so beautiful today. And I'm glad that I'm here today, you know, and I will not stop fighting for others.
And you're finding the beauty in life.
Yeah, I
You
never
can't replace
really
that.
saw any beauty in life. It was all ugly for me. So thank you so much today for coming to the show, and I appreciate all the love and support you have for me. I promise I will keep on pushing and being a happy person that will radiate the happiness to this world.
Thank you so much for having me. ขอบคุณมากครับ
ขอบคุณครับบ๊ายบาย